All right, let's look at some more Docker file examples. So in our repository that you've downloaded from my GitHub, let's go into Dockerfile sample number 2. And this time we actually have two files. We have the Docker file, and now we have an index.html. Super simple, hello world HTML. It's not really important to understand the HTML. We're just going to copy it into our container image as we're building it. So if we look at the Docker file, we'll see on this one that we're actually using nginx as our from command. So we're not building our own nginx, because ideally, if you can use an official image to get the job done from Docker Hub, then it'll be a lot easier for you to maintain this Docker file and keep it working well. So in simpler scenarios, quite often the official images work, but as you grow and add complexity to your environment and your systems, you'll probably find that you need to add additional custom software or change the way that it starts or add scripts in so that it tweaks the configuration. But when I'm starting a new greenfield project, or if I'm converting some old app, I always start with the official images from Docker Hub. And then once I hit some roadblocks and I'm not able to use that image anymore, I might go back to Docker Hub and take another look and see if there's anything custom out there that's really popular that I can trust and look into and see if it's going to solve my problem. But there's nothing wrong with building your own. It's just more work and more upkeep over time. So here it's super simple. We've got 3 stanzas. You've seen the from before. And this time we have the work dir. Now that's really just basically running a cd space directory change. And so you might be tempted to use the run command and just type run cd to this directory and then do some things. But really the best practice for Docker files is to always use a separate work dir stanza for whenever you're changing directories. So if your file gets a little complex and you have to move back and forth in your container to do things while it's building, you always want to use the work dir because it's a lot easier to describe in the Docker file what you're doing. So in this case, what we're actually doing here is we're changing to the default nginx directory for its HTML files. So in the default configuration on Docker Hub, nginx is acting just as a web server, and it's just serving static files right off the container disk. And the last stanza here we have is the copy. And this is the stanza you'll always be using to copy your source code from your local machine or your build servers into your container images. And in this case, we're just taking our simple index.html and we're overwriting the file in the nginx default directory so that it's our custom homepage for the web server. And before we build this, you'll notice that we're missing required stanzas like the CMD. So how can we get away with that? Well, there's already a CMD specified in the from image. And when we use the from, we inherit everything from the Docker file we're froming, if that's even a word. So this is how you can chain Docker files together so that images depend on other images, depend on other images. All right, let's see how this works. So before we build this, let's just quickly remind ourselves what a default nginx server does. Let's do a quick docker container run -p 8080. And we're not going to need this very long, so we're going to do a --rm so it will delete on quitting. And we don't care about the name, we're just going to run nginx. And if we hop over to our browser and just type in localhost, we see the default nginx index page. Okay, so let's remember that, and then let's just quit this container, and we're going to now build our version of nginx with our extra source code file. Okay, and this one should actually go really quick. You notice that it only took a few seconds, and that's because we already had nginx in our image cache, and all it was running was copying a very small file and changing the working directory. So now let's run the exact command we just ran for nginx, only this time we're going to use this new image we just built. Switch over to our browser and refresh, and great, our custom index HTML is running in there and our container works. And if we do a quick image ls, we can see our latest image up there at the top. And if we actually wanted to send this up to Docker Hub, it works the same way as we did earlier. We just need to retag it. So we could do docker image tag. And if you remember the help command, we can look at the format. And it's always the one we're tagging and the tag that we want it to then be called. So docker image tag nginx with HTML latest. And then I'll have to call it Brett Fisher like that. And then if I do a Docker image ls again, you'll see those top 2 lines are the same image ID again and just tagged differently. So now I could do a Docker push with that repository and tag, and I could get it up on Docker Hub.